Welcome to the debate. Imagine you're just standing in the middle of a crowded supermarket.
Okay.
A stranger walks up beside you, maybe an elderly man just picking out fruit, and suddenly your own chest tightens with this sharp phantom pain.
Like you're feeling his pain?
Exactly. You turn to this complete stranger and ask, "Are you on heart medication?" He stares at you completely shocked and says yes. You proceed to accurately sense his spinal issues, kidney stones, basically diagnosing a man you've never met, all purely through this invisible sympathetic resonance.
I mean, it sounds like a parlor trick, right? Or perhaps a scene from a sci-fi novel.
It really does.
But these are the actual documented systematic claims of Murthy BVNS. He's a man who insists this isn't magic at all, but rather a rigorous, replicable science.
Right. And today we're examining Murthy's highly detailed written accounts. Because here is a man who transitioned from a very rigorous, highly successful business background to this intense, isolating spiritual practice at the Santi ashram.
A massive life shift.
Huge. So the central question we are exploring today is whether the profound physiological and seemingly extrasensory phenomena described in his text, from hearing inaudible frequencies to remote healing and biological syncing, whether these represent verifiable systemic results of extreme physical and psychological conditioning.
Or, conversely, are these experiences best understood as profound subjective psychological states that are really fueled by sleep deprivation, extreme empathy, and, confirmation bias?
Exactly. And I view this material as really compelling evidence of a replicable systemic discipline. It's what his tradition calls Dharana Siddhi, and I think it yields tangible, objective human capabilities.
And I view his journey as a testament to extraordinary human endurance, but one that ultimately resulted in a highly subjective psychological state, one that was fundamentally driven by internal expectation, severe sensory deprivation, and observational bias.
Well, we really need to start with the fundamental methodology of the author here, because I think it dictates how we have to read his claims.
Sure, lay it out.
Murthy's journey is uniquely empirical. He wasn't some mystic looking for an escape from reality, He describes himself as a hardcore rationalist from an ethical, wealthy, and successful business family.
He had no ulterior motive.
Right. He had absolutely no financial or social need to invent supernatural claims to impress anyone. He approached spiritual practice like an engineering problem. He set a strict 10-year deadline for what he called Project God.
Project God? It's a very analytical title.
It is. And he actively sought to log his experiences. He demanded proof for every single step of his practice. And this process culminated in verifiable outcomes in the physical world. He successfully taught complex blindfold typing to tribal children.
Which is fascinating. Yeah.
And he received official medical referrals for severe conditions like comas and muscular neuron disorder. To me, this points to an objective, calibrated mechanism of human sensitivity, not just some psychological breakdown.
Okay, but you're confusing methodical documentation with objective reality. A person can meticulously document a hallucination, but it doesn't make the hallucination real.
But the outcomes...
Let me just say, anyone who can meditate for 144 hours continuously, pushing toward a 168-hour goal like he did, possesses a staggering level of psychological fortitude. There's no denying that.
Immense fortitude, yes.
But the resulting phenomena are classic subjective manifestations of extreme stress. We have to look at the text's own citation of the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which explicitly warns that practitioners often confuse or hallucinate their spiritual progress.
It does warn about that, true.
Right, so the subsequent experiences he logs, hearing cricket-like frequencies, seeing Pythagorean theorems manifesting a spiraling energy in his dreams, guessing ailments on the street, these are textbook examples of heightened empathic intuition combined with extreme physical exhaustion.
You really think it's just exhaustion?
They are fascinating cognitive phenomena, undoubtedly, but they are not objective supernatural forces.
Well, let's look exactly at those initial visions and then audible sounds you just mentioned, because the mechanism behind them is what makes them objective. This wasn't a random hallucination generated in isolation.
Okay, how so?
He began experiencing these phenomena after meeting his guru, Rapari Ramaral, and undergoing 3 weeks of really rigorous training. And it is critical to note here that his guru was a retired college principal whose academic subject was physics.
Right, the physics connection is key.
It is. After this training, Murthy began experiencing the anahata sabda, these internal varying frequencies that he initially mistook for crickets, along with visions of spiraling energy flows and pyramid structures.
The geometry visions.
Yes. And when he brought these to his guru, the physics principle validated them, not as madness, but as objective representations of Kundalini energy and underlying geometric realities.
But
Wait, think of his extreme meditative practice as the mechanical process of calibrating a highly sensitive scientific instrument. If you have a standard radio dial, it picks up the dominant local stations and a lot of static, right?
sure, I follow the analogy.
Murthy's ascetic practice tightened the tuner. It filtered out the everyday static of physical survival and social noise. He calibrated his neurological instrument to catch a frequency that was always broadcasting in the background. Just because an uncalibrated radio only plays static doesn't mean the tuned dial is hallucinating the music.
Okay, but your radio dial metaphor relies on the assumption that the frequency actually exists outside his own head.
I argue it does.
Let's look at the interaction Murthy had with another authority figure in that exact same segment of the text. The visiting professor from Andrew University.
The quantum physics lecture.
Yes, this professor comes to the camp and lectures on quantum physics, explicitly mentioning the book The Tao of Physics. And when Murthy shares his visions of spiraling energy and pyramids with this professor, the professor is annoyed.
He is fairly dismissive, yes.
He dismisses them entirely. He tells Murthy not to regurgitate concepts he likely just read in books. You are kind of ignoring the physical mechanics of what is happening to the author's brain here.
I'm not ignoring it, I'm reinterpreting it.
He states his sleep was reduced to merely 4 hours a night, and at times he was meditating for up to 14 hours a day. In cognitive science, if you take a human brain, subject it to intense isolation, drastically reduce its sleep, and force it into hyper-focused sensory deprivation, it will inevitably produce profound auditory and visual anomalies.
Right, but the specificity of...
The visual cortex craves input, and when starved of it, it generates its own. And why Pythagorean theorem specifically? If this is universal Kundalini energy, why isn't he seeing traditional Vedic iconography?
Because energy takes geometric form.
He sees geometry because his guru was a physics principal and they were discussing quantum physics. His starved brain is simply projecting his recent intellectual environment onto the backs of his eyelids.
Look, you can dismiss the internal visions as a starved brain projecting geometry all you want, but your neurological model totally falls apart when we look at how this state interacted with other people.
How does it fall apart?
Because he didn't just sit in a cave observing internal shapes. He took this sensitivity and applied it externally. When he resumed his life as a bookseller and later started teaching meditation, he began experiencing what he describes as biological syncing with his students.
Right. The mind-reading claims?
It wasn't mind reading, it was physiological resonance. He could accurately sense their sleep deprivation, their specific body pains, and their anxieties, sometimes even over the phone.
Which is quite a claim.
But what makes this empirical is his methodology. He explicitly notes that he kept his students blind to his experiments to avoid any post-hypnotic suggestion. He would simply ask, "Why didn't you sleep yesterday?" And the students were visibly shocked because he was right.
Okay, let's unpack that question.
He didn't just guess, though. He correlated these synced states with his students' astrological lagna, their ascendant sign in Vedic astrology, which marks the exact position of the horizon at their birth time. He used this as a data point to systematically map their energetic susceptibility. That is a rationalist applying a data logging approach to a verifiable metaphysical connection.
I'd argue he is applying a rationalist's veneer to a deeply flawed psychological experiment. You are describing a textbook manifestation of the clever Hans effect, layered with cold reading techniques.
Clever Hans? You think he was just reading micro-expressions over the phone?
In the early 1900s, people thought a horse named Clever Hans could do arithmetic.
but the horse was actually just reading microscopic, unconscious physical cues from its trainer. Murthy is the trainer here.
But he is likely entirely unaware he is reading subtle physiological cues. Bags under the eyes, a slight slump in posture, a shift in breathing patterns. Furthermore, look at the phrasing of his questions.
Why didn't you sleep yesterday?
Exactly. When an authority figure, a revered teacher, asks a pliant student, "Why didn't you sleep yesterday?" the very structure of the question assumes a premise.
It's a direct question.
Human memory is reconstructive. The student instantly searches their memory for any restless period the night before to validate the teacher's intuition. But the text clearly notes the genuine surprise in their eyes. They aren't just reconstructing memories to be polite. They are genuinely shocked by his specific accuracy.
They're shocked because people chronically underestimate how much physical information they broadcast on a daily basis. And let's return to your supermarket example from the intro.
The elderly man?
Right. He feels a squeeze in his heart, asks an old man beside him if he uses heart medication, and gets a yes. He senses spondylitis and sciatica. Think about the baseline statistics here, the base rate fallacy.
You think it's just lucky guessing?
If you approach elderly men on the street in any given demographic and ask if they have heart issues or joint pain, the statistical probability of a yes is overwhelmingly high. Every time he gets a yes, it acts as a massive dopamine hit of confirmation.
But
It's reinforcing his internal belief system. He is not scientifically logging the misses, right? He is building a rigid framework around the statistical hits.
Okay, if we restrict this to just reading subtle body language or statistical guessing in a supermarket, I can see the clever Hans argument. I can.
Thank you.
But you cannot cold read a child into typing complex Sanskrit blindfolded. And you cannot placebo a patient out of a coma.
We need to talk about the coma claims. Yes.
The most profound evidence in this text lies in the external physical outcomes, his pedagogical breakthroughs, and his medical healing. Let's examine his time teaching the Koya tribal kids at the Santi ashram.
A very interesting pedagogical case study.
Murthy recognized that these children required immediate gratification, vastly different from adult learners who are conditioned to endure boredom. To bridge this gap and establish trust, he actually broke ashram rules to show them the sci-fi movie Avatar.
Which is a brilliant teaching move, honestly.
It was. He recognized that a visual spectacle about a tribal culture connecting with a planetary energy network would resonate deeply with them. He then used that incredible rapport to channel their focus into Dharana, Siddhi, this intense, single-pointed concentration.
Right.
The result? These children learned blindfold touch typing in multiple languages, including English, Telugu, and Hindi. More remarkably, they were typing the Sahasranamams blindfolded.
The 1,000-name chants?
Yes, these are sprawling, 1,000-name Sanskrit chants that require immense phonetical and structural memorization. How does a psychological illusion translate into a child executing complex cognitive motor mapping while completely deprived of sight?
Look, the pedagogy is innovative, absolutely. Showing Avatar to bypass their resistance to traditional schooling is brilliant. But you are conflating spatial memory with supernatural ability.
It's not supernatural. It's advanced capability.
Teaching blindfold typing to children is an incredibly impressive cognitive motor skill, but it is not magic. It points to the incredible neuroplasticity in children when they are highly motivated by a charismatic, intensely focused teacher building a rigorous feedback loop.
But typing the Sahasranamams blindfolded.
They learn the keyboard layout and they memorize the chants. It is a massive achievement of focus. I grant you that. But it is entirely within the realm of known cognitive science.
But that intense focus, that Dharana Siddhi, is the exact same mechanism he applied to his medical claims. He wasn't just teaching typing, he was utilizing Ashwametha, a specific healing modality passed down by his guru.
The vital life force mechanism?
Right, which supposedly operates by directing vital life force to jumpstart the cellular energy of a diseased body. And we aren't talking about curing mild headaches here. The text documents success with labyrinthitis, sciatica, and even patients who had been in prolonged comas or suffering from muscular neuron disorder.
Those are severe conditions.
These are structural, severe neurological issues, and the ultimate verification of this mechanism is that mainstream traditional doctors, some of whom were actually his former computer students, began referring these complex feeling cases to him.
referrals aren't necessarily clinical endorsements.
Traditional medicine recognized that his energetic mechanism was achieving results their biological models simply could not.
I'd counter that traditional medicine recognized he was exceptional at inducing the parasympathetic nervous system, not that he was manipulating unseen energy. We have to look clinically at the conditions you just listed.
Okay, let's look at them.
Sciatica is severe nerve pain, but it is heavily influenced by surrounding muscle tension and structural stress. Labyrinthitis is an inner ear issue affecting balance, which is massively exacerbated by anxiety and cortisol levels.
They still have biological root causes.
Yes, but these conditions are highly responsive to profound stress reduction. When a patient sits with a highly attentive, deeply confident practitioner who genuinely believes he can heal them, it induces a profound placebo effect.
You're reducing this to the placebo effect.
The placebo effect is incredibly powerful. The patient feels truly seen and held in a calm space by an authority figure. This engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which drastically reduces systemic inflammation and alters pain perception. The ashwamedha method is functioning as a delivery system for deep psychological relief.
Lowering cortisol does not wake a person from a coma, and it does not reverse muscular neuron disorder. He explicitly states he provided remote assistance to resolve health issues that local, long-standing meditators could not fix.
Remote assistance is even harder to verify clinically.
He is targeting specific imbalances, not just offering a generalized relaxation response.
Which is exactly why the mentions of coma and muscular neuron disorder must be contextualized. In the framework of the text, these function as anecdotal reflections of his growing reputation. We do not have clinically documented, peer-reviewed reversals of motor neuron death here.
He still received the referrals.
Doctors referring terminal or chronic patients to a revered meditation teacher for palliative comfort and stress management is standard practice today. It provides relief to the patient, but providing comfort and reducing inflammatory stress does not mean the practitioner is fundamentally rewriting cellular pathology with a supernatural force.
It's not supernatural, it's physiological.
Furthermore, his background as a rationalist actually makes him more susceptible to this trap. When a hyper-analytical person who demands proof desperately wants to find it, especially to justify a 10-year grueling commitment to Project God, their mind will inevitably connect the dots.
So you think he tricked himself?
I think he interprets the natural physiological relief of his patients as divine validation of his specific technique.
I maintain that dismissing these outcomes as mere palliative comfort completely underplays the specific targeted nature of his results. I mean, as we look at the sum of Murthy BVNS's accounts, this material presents a deeply compelling case for an empirical approach to the Purna Yoga tradition.
An empirical approach, sure.
We see a practitioner whose intense discipline and sensory calibration yielded tangible systemic capabilities. From the extraordinary pedagogical mapping required to teach tribal children to type thousand-name Sanskrit chants blindfolded, to the physiological impacts that earn the professional respect of conventional doctors.
It's a fascinating record.
This text aggressively challenges our accepted scientific boundaries. It suggests that human sensitivity and focus, when systematically trained through an established mechanism like Dharana Siddhi, can extend human capability far beyond what our current biological models understand.
And while I read the exact same text, I see a beautiful, intense, and frankly fascinating window into human psychology. The author's astonishing dedication undeniably fostered extraordinary emotional intelligence, pedagogical empathy, and deep focus.
We agree on his focus.
However, the phenomena he experienced, the geometric visions, the physical syncing in supermarkets, the pain relief in his patients, are entirely explainable through the robust lenses of extreme psychological conditioning, the power of the parasympathetic placebo effect, reconstructive memory, and the deeply human mechanism of confirmation bias.
It's one way to frame it.
To me, it is a profound story of how the human mind, under immense pressure, sensory deprivation, and expectation, constructs its own reality to justify its suffering.
Well, what we certainly share is a deep appreciation for the author's remarkable commitment, his dedication to his own rigorous practice, and more importantly, to the tangible well-being and education of his students is really undeniable.
Oh, absolutely. His care for those students is palpable.
The source material provides a truly fascinating window into how ancient traditions are adapted by modern analytical minds, attempting to bridge the gap between spiritual heritage and rational inquiry. There is clearly much more to unpack regarding the intersection of classical yoga, cognitive psychology, and empirical science within these accounts.
Absolutely. Examining these accounts forces us to ask really rigorous questions about the nature of experience itself and, how deeply our expectations shape our physical reality.
Indeed. It brings us right back to that opening scene in the supermarket. When we look at the outer limits of human perception and capability, are we simply observing a psychological system breaking down and rebuilding itself under the weight of extreme stress? Or are we witnessing an incredibly calibrated human instrument tuning into a frequency the rest of us simply haven't learned how to hear yet? We will leave you to ponder that. Thank you for joining us.